Hey everybody, and welcome to the patch 12.20 preview, part 2. As a reminder, in part 2 we go over the actual changes that are happening. But until we see the actual patch notes, which will come out in a week, no changes are finalized and can be changed over the course of the next week. So until we see the patch note video, until they go live, these aren't in the game. They will be in the game in a week, okay? You guys always ask me every time, and I say in the first 30 seconds. Pay attention to the first 30 seconds. They're not live until they're live. Okay, so we're just going to take it from the top to the bottom, and don't worry, I'll move my camera and we'll see these things. But we have Jace. The melee W mana restore has gone from 6 to 16 to 10 to 20, so plus 4 at every rank. His bonus armor and MR in his melee form has now gained a bonus AD ratio. So I went and I looked up Jace, and even though he's top 25, his win rate's not that bad. At 48%, that's pretty much where he's balanced. It seems for once they decided to buff him in a way that isn't just buffing his damage, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm a bit worried about buffing Jace at all, because as I've mentioned earlier, anytime Jace is good, he tends to take over the entire game. My issue here in particular is by buffing his tankiness. That means that Phase Rush Jace and other things will be able to run up to melee champions and beat the crap out of them more often. I just don't like Jace as a champion, and I don't like him being buffed. Eat your heart out, Jace mains. I don't like Jace. I could like you as a person, Jace main. I just don't like the champion you play. Wukong top. So remember when I was mentioning that Wukong just goes Q, R, Q, R, Q, and kills every top laner? Their buffing is R-AD ratio, so now he'll be able to Q, R, Q, R, Q, and kill every top laner. I don't think they quite got that I was joking, and they actually think that I wanted his Q, R, Q, R, Q buffed. So I'm a 220% AD ratio to a 275% AD ratio. It's fairly substantial, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not 100% that this is a good idea either. I'm a bit worried about this. They could have started at maybe like 250%. If this is the buff they wanted to go with, I think other buffs would maybe do better. Maybe restoring his magic resist so he had some more lanes. I mean, definitely giving him back his magic resist, I think would actually be a better buff. Keeping him as this niche anti-bruiser pick that just stomps on bruisers and loses to everyone else, I don't think it's a good idea. I think, right, you start by giving him back his magic resist. Just give him the 4 magic resist at level 1. I don't know if his per level is lower, but give him back the 4 magic resist on level 1 instead of doing this, okay? Gwen is getting more late game because Gwen was just not good enough late game. Her Q damage per snip is going from 10 to 26 to 10 to 30, and her Q final snip damage is going from 60 to 140 to 60 to 160. So here's the issue I'm talking about with Gwen. Her Q is so fast that you reasonably can't react to it and dodge it. Right now, unless you have like a Fiora Q or something like that, you can't reasonably react to it, in my opinion. And that kind of makes her this weird pick where she just Qs, then E's the Q right into you. And, you know, once again, this is what I was talking about yesterday. It makes her a very consistent teamfight damage champion, and particularly against frontliners who don't really dance around that much. I don't think this buff will be too much. I don't think it'll push her over the top. They're being a bit what's the way to put it? They're being very like low key about it. They're just doing a little bit of a buff, not a major buff. So hopefully this doesn't do too much. Evelyn, her Q mark damage. Now that's if she actually hits you with the Q. That is getting its damage boosted from 10 to 50 to 15 to 55. So 15 more damage in total if she actually hits her Q. Then her charm duration is being buffed. Once again, I don't think a charm should be 2.25, but it will be 2.25. So instead of 2 seconds, it will now cap out at 2.25 seconds. I just think that Evelyn is a really, really good anti-tank assassin and does not need to be an anti-tank assassin. Certainly, we don't need to be buffing anti-tank assassins, right? Ziggs is getting his Q damage buffed by 10, right? He's evidently trying to see how much damage they can pump into Ziggs before it becomes too much. So now with 95 to 295 damage, this will make this one of the highest base damage abilities in the game on a spammable Q. Honestly, it's like, it's weird. It's like, all Ride can think of doing is like, is Ziggs viable? Give him more base damage. The only thing I can think of is they're trying to like push Ziggs for bot lane. So they're like, oh man, if we give Ziggs more early game damage, then he'll be able to bot lane better. But like, Is that it? Is that like, I feel like sometimes Riot gets like stubborn into an idea, like the idea of Ziggs bot. So they think to themselves, how can we push Ziggs bot more? I know, we'll give him 10 more damage. But like, the question I have is like, is that the only way to make him viable? Like, that's the only way to do that? Like, you can't do anything else, just buff more early game damage for the bot lane. I mean, this is 95 to 295. I mean, most mage abilities cap out maybe like 70 to 80 damage in rank 1. This one's 95, okay? So as for Rammus, the W, that's his defensive ball curl. The defensive ball curl has had itself slow removed entirely. I think that's actually kind of significant, obviously, and to be honest, I think it's probably fair at this point. I think the self-slow came from a different era, and with how much mobility is in the game right now, it's kind of weird that in order to be like an actual champion, in order to actually do anything, he needs to slow himself down to where anyone can walk away from him. This is actually, in my opinion, probably a pretty good buff, because it means that once you reach the higher ranks, knowing to walk away from Rammus doesn't just like make the Rammus bad, because like right now he goes defensive ball curl, everyone who knows the champion just like walks away. They don't shoot him, they don't do anything. That means like AD carries and those sorts of champions, like they can't, like Rammus can't do anything. He goes defensive ball curl, and if they're decent at the game, they go, oh, I guess I won't shoot him for now, and they just they just wait around. Rammus is like but like he'll never, you know. So then R speed, instead of 105% of original movement, it's gonna be 110% of original movement speed. It's not the biggest deal. Yeah, that buff is kind of insignificant. SETT is getting his magic resist nerfed from 32 to 28. Now, I actually looked this one up because, like, when Riot nerfs magic resist, 99% of the time, that just means they want to nerf a champion for mid lane. So I went and I looked it up, and sure enough, SETT mid across every rank I could look at any rate, yeah, SETT mid is actually overperforming in basically every rank. Except the low ranks, evidently. Oh, nope, the low ranks, he's still dominating. Oh, God, he's, like, really dominating. Holy crap. So, I actually looked this one up because, like, I know, anytime Riot nerfs the MR on a champion, I'm like, it's because of mid lane, isn't it? He's overpowered in mid lane. And every time, yes, it's because of mid lane. So, I instinctively knew what was happening here. In addition to that, though, they are nerfing his passive regen at rank 1, not at the other ranks. So like by level 6, it'll be the exact same, but early in the game, the passive regen is going down considerably from 0.25 every, like 5% health to 0.15. So he's losing like a third of his passive health regen, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's actually a fairly significant nerf right there. I think, in all honesty, I think that's going to do more than Riot thinks it's going to do. That's going to make a lot of his top matchups basically unwinnable, because right now he can often rely on losing the trade, then healing back up, then losing the trade, then healing back up, then losing the trade. Against a lot of meta champions, he has to do that, like against, Fiora, against Jax, against Aatrox, against Camille. Like, there's basically no way for SETT to actually win a trade unless they just, like, walk up to him, beat the shit out of him, and then let him E into W. Like, if they do anything more intelligent than that, he can't win the trade. So I think this is actually going to be fairly significant, right? I think maybe the magic resist is good enough. It's not like SETT mid is, like, super popular. Yeah. Now, they are giving him a little bit of a compensation here. The AD ratio on his right hook, so he goes like boom, 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 right? Like, the right hook is going from a 50% bonus AD ratio to 55%. So it's like a little bit of a compensation to try to give him the ability to win trades, I guess. I just don't think that's going to, like, that's just not going to be nearly enough, okay? So Aatrox is getting, it's kind of like a significant nerf, but it's also kind of insignificant, but it's also kind of significant. It's not a nerf I like. They're nerfing his passive healing from 100% of damage dealt to 80% of damage dealt. I think, my opinion, is that they should nerf his health per level down, and instead they should buff Gore Drinker. It's like nerf his health per level down, then buff Gore Drinker. I think that's what they should do for Aatrox. That would make his lethality build squishier and therefore more punishable, and it will return Aatrox to being like more of a high skill. I'm not saying he's like low skill, but obviously like the skill gap on Aatrox I feel like has gone down considerably. He went from like a champion who was like a 48-49% win rate, you know, pretty decently balanced even then. He went from that to like everyone can just pick up Aatrox and do okay with him. Not great, but okay. And I think this is what they're trying to target. his ability to go with the lethality build and heal a lot with his passive. But the thing is, like, if they just nerfed his health per level, the lethality build would go down anyway, right? So just like nerf his health per level and then buff Gore Drinker, and then Gore Drinker will be better on him, and then lethality will be worse on him. They'll meet somewhere in the middle, and it'll go back to how it was early in this season, where it's like 50-50 Eclipse or Gore Drinker. Right now it's 100% Eclipse, because you nerfed his healing so much, and then you buffed his tankiness so much that why not just go with a glass cannon build, right? And that I don't like that at all. And I think a lot of Aatrox players, when Aatrox players think Aatrox, they don't just think like obviously he's a combo character, right? Like I agree, he's a combo based character, but right now he's like, when the rework first hit and he had his double E's, he was just a combo caster. He just did his combo and tried to kill you. And they've definitely been returning to that way by nerfing his healing so much and by buffing his damage so much and by pushing him to a lethality build and making him tankier and all that stuff. They've been pushing him back into kind of being just like a combo kill champion. Just like a fucking, like you make like montages of like, look at me, one shot everyone with Aatrox, right? Like that's kind of what they've been pushing him into. And I don't think a lot of Aatrox players like that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying preferably a lot of Aatrox players like sitting at mid-range. They like out healing people. They like, going in when it's time to go in. But I don't think, and a lot of people are playing Aatrox, if Aatrox can just kill you with all 3 Q crits, that's a lot of damage, and it kind of makes him really, really frustrating to play against. Now, in the past, Aatrox could never kill you with all 3 Q crits. I mean, he could if he was ahead, but realistically, he would have to like poke you with a few Qs, back out, maybe hit a passive. If he was against an 80 carry, he'd have to like do the full combo plus Gore Drinker plus maybe Ignite and all that. But now, like, you kill so many champions with this stupid lethality build, just, Q, 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 and they're dead, right? And it removes a lot of what makes Aatrox fun, is that like sitting at mid-range, kind of outsmarting people, letting your Q refresh, doing stuff like that, right? I've been talking a lot, and I hope you guys understand why I've been talking a lot, but at either rate, I think that's where they should go with Aatrox. MAOKAI is getting basically obliterated. I'm not going to lie to you right now. The passive healing is going from 4.5 to 12% to 4 to 10%. Then his old cooldown is getting nerfed on top of that. I think that's way over the top. I'm going to defend MAOKAI any day of the week. He doesn't need to be nerfed at all. His win rate, I don't know why he has that win rate. He feels absolutely balanced to fight against. He feels absolutely balanced to play. I've had no issues with MAOKAI. No issues whatsoever. He's perfectly fine. I don't know what you're doing right, but you are effectively murdering this champion, and I disagree a lot. Please don't nerf MAOKAI. Please don't kill him. Okay, so with Elise, let me go ahead and I'll just shuffle my camera up here so you guys can see down here before I forget. Okay, so Elise is losing some cast range, but it'll be target's hitbox edge. For some reason, Elise's Q had this weird quirk where the range was from her edge to the middle of the opposing champion. Every other targeted ability goes from edge to edge. Hers went from edge to middle. This meant that against large champions like Cho'Gath, she had to get like bizarrely close to them to hit them with the Q, which was weird, and it's good that they're fixing it. Actually, that's like a good thing that they're fixing it. So Bloodscrank, support versus jungle. Okay, this one, oh boy, this one's getting like real complicated and weird. So his passive is going from 30% max mana to 15 to 45% max mana. So much squishier in the early game, much tankier in the late game. His Q damage is also going down by 10 at rank 5. The monster damage on his W is going up from 60 to 180 to 60 to 220. I'll probably talk about this more in like my patch video. For now, I'm going to try to, his E damage is going from 200% total AD to 175% AD. His E bonus monster damage is going from 150% to 175%. And monsters and minions are now occasionally sent to the moon when overkilled. So they're basically nerfing the ever-living hell out of Bloodscrank support, which he's pretty dominant right now. Not gonna lie, he's doing maybe a bit too much. Let me zoom in on here so you guys can see. This is Masters Plus, okay? And this is all ranks. So he's doing maybe a bit too good everywhere, in fact. So He's being nerfed early game for support. His Q's being nerfed. It's 20 less damage for support. He's getting more damage against monsters. He's losing E damage, so he doesn't have as much support damage. Like, they don't want him to be as overpowered in support, which, I'll be honest, I didn't notice Bloodscrank was this overpowered until I looked at it. He kind of feels like okay, though. I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, they're basically trying to obliterate... They're trying to obliterate Bloodscrank's support, and even if they do obliterate it, he'll still be top tier. And they're trying to make Bloodscrank jungle not fall off. But I'm gonna be dead honest with you. I was looking at Bloodscrank jungle, and that shit ain't... Let me sort by low win rate here, and I can find it. Yeah, I knew it. Bloodscrank jungle ain't it. This ain't happening, right? So, in all honesty, these buffs don't even counteract the jungle nerfs to begin with. So, honestly, like, unless you're willing to give him like a substantial boost into the jungle, just offsetting the amount of nerfs you're doing aren't going to keep him viable in the jungle, because the thing is, he's not even viable in the jungle. So you're nerfing Bloodscrank, and then you're like, oh, we'll offset some of these nerfs in the jungle. Like, if you keep him exactly as he is, then he's terrible. So, like, there's basically no point to even buff his jungling, because he can't even jungle, right? Like, it's stupid. And much like every champion, I'll be honest here, much like every champion you guys have ever buffed to jungle, all that people do is they go to lane with this champion that you buffed to jungle. They go to lane, and then they just use it to clear the jungle faster. Darius did that, Mord did that, Garen did that. All three of them had to be nerfed after you buffed their jungling, because they could just go to lane and then also clear the Krugs or the Gromp way easier. And it was a buff for their laning. Diana, by the way, also had to have that. So, just a thought, Riot. You know, a lot of him being strong in support is, well, let's be honest, a lot of it's probably just going to be the fact that he can level 1, give the jungler a crazy leash, and then later on he can help his AD carry clear the jungle really easy. So, Mortal Reminder, I thought this was already in the game, so this is kind of a surprise for me. The amount of auto attacks to trigger the big Grievous wounds is going from 3 to 2. This item is not very good, except if you use it as a stat stick. If you actually use it as a Grievous wounds item, it's not the greatest. And I'm not sure this is a good idea. Maybe this is their, like, second nerf to Aatrox. They're like trying to buff Mortal Reminder, and then AD carries will have more anti-Aatrox itemization. I guess that's what they're trying to do. I don't really know. So Sturg's Gauge. Sturg's Gauge is getting a huge buff here. Okay. Sturg's Gauge is going from 45% AD back to 50%, which is huge, because that's what it used to be. And that means that champions like Darius, Aatrox, etc. have another item that in the late game is going to give 70 AD again. Now, that's big. Is this enough to make a champion like Aatrox go Sturg's Gauge? Maybe. I'll be honest with you, maybe not, maybe, I don't know, probably not, but you know, it's a really big buff. At the very least, this helps out Alawi, this helps out Darius, this helps out Olaf, and I don't think any one of those, definitely not Darius, is doing very good right now. Darius is doing awful right now, in fact, I think. So by buffing Sturg's Gauge with this actually fairly large AD buff, and then the shield buff, yeah, let's go over the shield buff too. So it's going from 75% of bonus HP to 80% of bonus HP. And the decay time is going from 3.75 to 4.5. So instead of the shield decaying over 3.75 seconds, it'll decay over 4.5 seconds. So a less of a decay. I would prefer if it didn't decay at all and then like only lasted 3 seconds, but because, like, the problem is, like, unless it instantly gets broken entirely, it decays so rapidly that you'll never get the actual amount that you think you're getting. You'll never get it that much. If they brought back the tooltip showing how much it shielded, I guarantee you'd be shielding far less than you actually thought if you actually stacked health to use it. The good thing, though, is this does mean that Sturg's Gauge will once again go back to being an item that can be built. It can be built. Right now, I think the only champion who can use it is Olaf. Of every champion I played, I think the only champion that legitimately can go Sturg's Gauge is Olaf. On every other champion, it's pretty bad. So, will we see the return of Goredrinker's Sturg's Gauge? Highly unlikely. Particularly because Death's Dance is a pretty dang good item. But we might, maybe, potentially, see... I don't know, maybe like Goredrinker, Black Clavered Sturg's. Like, I doubt it. I doubt it. I really do doubt it. But, you know, keep hope. Okay. So once you cap out lethal tempo, ranged champions, instead of getting 75 damage, are going to go only 50. when they said Lethal Tempo was getting nerfed, I was hoping that they would like when they said they were nerfing Aatrox and Lethal Tempo, my thoughts were like, oh god, they're gonna depower all the top laners. Like finally, the champions who aren't, you know, Aatrox and the Lethal Tempo users will actually be able to compete top lane again. But now they're only nerfing it for ranged, which, okay, fuck you ADCs, you know, fine. But I kind of wish they nerfed it on melee, because we have champions like SETT and Jax and not SETT, Jax and Yone, there we go, who use Lethal Tempo, and they just kind of run at you and beat the crap out of you. And it kind of gatekeeps top pretty hard, to be honest with you, especially Jax Lethal Tempo. Jax is not supposed to be... Jax has always actually had a far, far, far weaker all-lane early game than anyone wants to admit. His attack speed on his passive is only 24% at max stacks. He's never been good at all-laning early game. He's had a good counter-strike. He has a good trade, but he was never that good at all-laning. Well, now with Lethal Tempo, he is really good at all-laning, which, in my opinion, is quite frustrating to fight against and makes a lot of champions suck into Jax. Champions who are supposed to be beating him early game are not, in fact, beating him early game. They're losing pretty hard, in fact. So, Frozen Heart is being nerfed from 2,500 gold to 2,700 gold. From 80 armor to 90 armor, and the flat damage reduction on the Rock Solid, that's every time you auto attack into Frozen Heart, it would reduce the damage. That's going from 7 to 5. What Riot has said, they're trying to make it so Frozen Heart is more expensive, so that you can't just like slot in one Frozen Heart as a bruiser. Like, you can't just do Frozen Heart Hecarim, Frozen Heart Jax, Frozen Heart Aurelia, and then like you have like 2 damage items in a Frozen Heart, and now like no auto attacker can fight back against you. So, in my opinion, this is a pretty hard nerf. 200 gold for 10 armor and then damage reduction. I think the gold cost alone would be pretty good. But, yeah, I mean, the armor makes up for the gold cost, but then I don't know why they're giving it this random reduction. I think they're just trying to make it so that if you don't build health, it doesn't do as much, but it's not like they're buffing the health ratio either. For the last change, we have Demonic Embrace. The health is going from 450 to 350. The AP ratio is going from 60 to 75. Then it's getting the ranged burn damage nerfed. Now, presumably, they're nerfing the ranged burn damage because with a higher, like, ranged champions would care more about the AP ratio, with the AP and less about the health. 100 nerf makes it much weaker on melee champions, but 100 health doesn't, like it kind of affects champions like Swain and Malzahar, but not nearly as much as Shyvana or MAOKAI or any of those melee champions, right? So, yeah, they're gonna nerf it on range because range can, you know, be at range and use the AP ratios better. A lot of players have been asking for this, actually, Singed players in particular. Basically, it's hard to get enough damage on Singed and some other champions. I know I keep saying Singed and some other champions, but I mean Singed and some other champions. It's hard to get damage because you have Rylai's that is low AP, you had Demonic that had low AP, and it meant that Demonic Embrace, often enough, meant that you weren't really doing that much damage even into the late game. So they're changing it up a little bit. This isn't going to be like a colossal swap. They're not like swapping the item around and suddenly everything will be new. But, you know, they're trying to adjust it a little bit. And, you know, they're trying to play it safe and make sure that we don't see ranged champions just slot in Demonic Embrace just to do more damage. My big concern here is we already saw that Akali was building Demonic Embrace. But hopefully Akali gets nerfed, ? Riot? Maybe that would be a good idea. So that's the patch 12.20 preview part 2. That's it, everybody. Come back in a week. We'll go over the actual patch notes, and always remember, and the reason my actual patch notes videos are longer is because, like, if this change doesn't go through, or this change gets changed, or this change is like a different change when it goes, like, I don't want to sit here like speculating for like 3 hours and being like, how will this matter for Aatrox? Let me run the numbers on this one, right? Because like they could come back tomorrow and be like, yeah, actually we're gonna go in a different direction, and I'll be like, oh cool, I spent like 3 hours going over that, but yep, sure, that's cool, yeah. So anyway, I'll see you guys in a week for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave a comment down below on your thoughts on any of this. And as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everybody.